Welcome to In Our Town, Conversations with Springfieldians Making a Difference. I'm your host, Tom Carlson, publisher of the Springfield Daily Citizen. If you'd like to comment on this episode, our email is inourtown@sgfcitizen.org. We'd love to hear from you. So, school started on August 22nd here in Springfield. Most kids were getting ready with the help of their parents. They were buying school supplies, new clothes, and mom and dad were making sure that they got a good night's sleep before school started. I said most kids. There are other kids that life was much different. They're starting school with worn-out clothes, maybe poorly fitting shoes that they got from their mom or their dad, and a lot of them showed up for that first day tired and hungry. And they're probably embarrassed and felt somewhat conspicuous. It's no way to start school, but there is a local organization that stands ready, willing, and able to help these kids get off to a good start. It's called Care to Learn, formed about 15 years ago by local entrepreneur Doug Pitt. Since then, Care to Learn has more than 3 million times helped out kids from this sort of background. With me today to explain how they do it is Care to Learn's Chief Executive Officer, Krystal Simon. Krystal, welcome to In Our Town.
Thank you so much for having me, Tom.
Well, you're very welcome. Now, I looked up, let me see if I've got your background right. You're a graduate from Drury University.
Yes, go DU.
And then I think you worked with Jack Stack in the Great Game of Business for a while before you went to work in development at Springfield Little Theater. And from there, you migrated to Camp Barnabas. And then the last 3 years, Care to Learn. Now that's, if I got it right?
Yeah, you did. You did your homework.
I did. I tried to.
You're a good student.
Could have been better, I'll tell you. How did you go from sort of a corporate beginning, getting into communications, maybe public relations, to now working to help disadvantaged kids? So what was the trajectory?
Yeah. I wish I would have loved to have thought that there was like a straight path or that I had it figured out years ago, but that wasn't necessarily the case. My sister and I are first generation kids to go to college. So getting to go to college was a huge opportunity for her and I. To be honest, I knew early on that I probably wanted to do nonprofit. And so I was a little hesitant actually to take the internship at the Great Game. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something that I was really excited to do. But Drury does a really good job of connecting students and professors with opportunities that they feel like will be meaningful for both the workforce as well as the student. And so I'm so thankful that Regina Waters was my professor. And she's like, Krystal, you should totally do this. And I'm like, no, I really need a paid internship, Regina. I need a job.
Yeah.
And so I was able to get that position and kind of move up the ranks. And to be honest, Tom, I'm so thankful because looking back, I don't think that I would be sitting with you today had I not taken that internship. Because what's super cool is that I was a communications major. Fun fact, I actually broke both of my elbows my sophomore year in college. And so I actually was going to be a business minor and ended up dropping it because econ was not my gifting. Let's just say that. And so
my mother-in-law used to say, when doors close, other doors open.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds that way to me.
Yeah, for sure. So I took the position at Great Game. I had an incredible experience. I decided to actually leave Great Game after about 6 or 7 years. I've been traveling, and my husband and I were wanting to start a family.
Yeah.
And I did kind of what everyone says not to do. I actually left the workforce. I went and stayed home with my kids. I actually homeschooled them for a season. That's another podcast. That's another podcast. Was homeschooling. But I'm so thankful for the time that I had with little kids when they were younger. And then kind of fast forward, when I was kind of ready to get back, I started working part-time at Springfield Little Theater because my daughter was really involved. And I'm like, hey, this is a great way for me to give back. And so that was a great way to kind of get my toe back into the workforce. And then when the position came available at Camp Barnabas, it was really cool is because I called Jack and was like, hey, I think I'm ready to go back could I list you as a reference? Well, it just so happened that Peter Hershend happened to be on the Camp Barnabas board and still is.
Right.
And that connection, I got that position at Camp Barnabas because of that relationship that I had with Jack. And then the same thing happened kind of when I went to Care to Learn. So kind of that full circle
Well, there's two
moment.
Jacks involved, Jack and Peter Hershend, both
Yeah.
are very big supporters of Camp Barnabas. So that's interesting. So what did you learn at Camp Barnabas that helped you in your present job?
Oh my gosh, I learned so much. So I started with the development position and kind of moved up. So when I left, I was kind of the number 2 in charge, and I loved camp. I never thought I would leave camp. It was, in my mind, it's like rainbows, unicorns. It's magical. I mean, you're getting to provide experiences for kids that don't have those options. You're getting to come alongside high school students that have no idea what they want to do with their life, that are connected to a device, and they come and they get to serve and they get to unplug and they find out who they really are and what they're capable of, and that maybe the world really doesn't revolve around them, which is shocking, right? I have
There's still some people that haven't learned that, by the way.
Yeah, it's a good reminder. They need to go to camp then. And so I really did love it. I probably loved it too much, to be honest, Tom. But then COVID happened. And that kind of rocked my world. I mentioned to you I have 3 kiddos. And there always was something else that was pulling me away from home. So I would split my time in the summer between camp and Springfield. So camp is in Purdy, Missouri.
Right.
And it was kind of a wake-up call for me to say, I'm really good at this. I really love this. But am I going to look back in 20 years and I'm going to be looking myself in the mirror and say, I have my priorities all wrong? And that was happening. And so I made what felt like a really difficult and hard decision to leave, because, a lot of times people leave a job and it's because they, want more money, or they're not happy, or it's not fulfilling. It was none of that. And so I had to have kind of like that gut check to say, Krystal Simon, are you the problem? Or is it the workload? Is it kind of the way camp ministry works and the fact that when my kids are available, that's when camp is in operation? Meaning, like in the summertime, there's less sports,
Right.
There's less activities. And when the kids are younger, I say all the time that it's like living at Disney, because it's so much fun being on staff at camp.
Well, you must be really good at time management and that sort of thing. I mean, a wife, a mom, 3 kids, and taking on this job. I think you could get it all done if you wouldn't screw around between midnight and 6 in the morning,
I wish, I like to think I'm super organized, but I think the truth is I don't do it all. I'm so blessed. I have a great support system. I prioritize the things that only I can do. I try to outsource the things in my personal life that I don't want to do, if at all possible, to where then I can have, like, when I'm home, I'm where my feet are, I'm with my kids, I'm with my husband. But I'm very honest and authentic to say
So are you
that I
like
still
one of
struggle.
those lean-in type women?
I would say that, yeah, yes, I'm very type A. If you ask anybody around me, probably a little controlling, a little bit of a perfectionist, but
I see.
but I guess it's got me where I am today.
So let's talk about Care to Learn. What is
Yeah.
their mission?
Yeah, our mission is to provide resources to children to meet their health, hunger, hygiene needs so they can succeed in school. What started out was really, there wasn't a grand plan when we started to say, hey, we're going to have all of these chapters across Missouri. The thought was, we want to help kids right here in Springfield. And so you're right. Kudos to our founder, Doug Pitt. I say all the time, Doug didn't need another thing to do. He had enough success in his career at the time, was very successful, but he says all the time that Care to Learn chose him. And I think that's so powerful because it was something that just wouldn't leave him. And so I'm super fortunate that Maury Mecklin at the time was in charge of the Springfield Public Schools Foundation.
Right.
And at a board meeting, she was sharing statistics with the board about kids hurting in our community.
Yeah, I think that actually happened at a chamber board.
It is. Yeah, were you there?
Oh, I've heard about it.
You've heard. It's crazy because that is like that thread that 16 years ago still sticks with us today. Mm-hmm. And the 2 stories were 3 siblings that were sharing 1 toothbrush because they didn't have the resources or the means to get a toothbrush. for each of
So
them.
the mission says we help kids with health and hygiene, and what's the third?
Hunger.
Hunger. I thought it was
Yep.
hunger. Help our listeners picture this in our minds. What's a typical situation that Care to Learn will be asked to step in and help with?
Yeah. So we partner with school districts around the state. So there's 46 communities that we partner with. And I always say that in each and every district, it looks a little bit different. So you can kind of pick and choose what that looks like and what are the gaps in your community. At the end of the day, we want to steward dollars well. We don't want to duplicate resources, and we want to come alongside other community partners to help support your students. So that could be that we provide food pantries in schools where we know that there's a lot of kids that are on free and reduced lunch, but they're still hungry and they don't have an opportunity to have a snack, or maybe they're playing after school sports. That's something that we would help support. From a hygiene standpoint, it's everything that you could think of: shampoo, conditioner, soap, all of those things. Some things that you might not think of, however, would be helping with like bed bug treatment or lice. We do quite a bit of that. That's pretty costly. It's pretty invasive in a home. From a health standpoint, it could be prescriptions. So a lot of times...
Well, now let's back up for a second.
Yeah.
You say we help. So you have the employees at the school, the
Yep.
teachers, the janitors, the school bus drivers,
That is correct.
and then you have Care to Learn. Are you providing the tangible goods they need and some money on the side? Or I'm still a little unclear about who does what.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, we are kind of behind the scenes. So when I think of Care to Learn, we call ourselves like Krystal Simon and team. That is the central office. So even though we are in Springfield, in the Springfield community, that is separate from Springfield Public Schools District, which is a great question to ask. So we kind of serve in the back, but then the front facing is the people that you just mentioned: the bus drivers, the counselors, the nurses. A new game changer post-COVID is those social workers. Those men and women are very instrumental. So anybody that works within the school district can say, hey, I see a kid, this child needs shoes. I see a child, they're wearing the same outfit today. We need to provide them with the resources to get clean clothes. They
So
can be the...
Let's run through the circumstance.
Yeah.
Second grade teacher, Mrs. Jones, sees a young Krystal Simon.
Yep.
And she's been wearing the same clothes the last couple days. Whom does she call and what happens next?
Yeah, so we have a referral form within each school district that's customized to the district. So it's a Google form that's customized. So you as the teacher would say, Mr. Tom has Krystal Simon. She's wore the same outfit. You put that into like a Google Doc. That Google Doc gets shot off to our main point of contact, which we call that a liaison within the school district. And that individual will know what resources Krystal Simon has accessed in the past or might be available that would be particular to that school. So that goes back to that whole comment, we don't duplicate services. So it could be that, you know what, we actually already handed out, we noticed that Krystal's brother, who's in a different building, we saw the same thing with that individual, and we actually just sent home laundry supplies for them. So you know what, Krystal's taken care of. We make a note, let Mr. Tom know, hey, Krystal's going to get hygiene items because we sent it home with her brother. You know, if there's another occurrence, let us know. So that communication goes through the district. But then on the back side of that, Care to Learn, our office, is the ones that's providing those resources to the district. So at our office, we have our on-site product that we provide directly to the district, as well as we do all of the fundraising, marketing. All of that is through our office.
So I could imagine a scenario or two where if I were a young person and from marginal circumstances being embarrassed about my situation, what do you do to protect their privacy?
Absolutely. So I say all the time, and it was true 16 years ago and it's true today, we do not know the individuals served, meaning that teacher meets that need, helps that child. They do it in a discreet manner. So that child is not pulled out of class. There's not a big, it's not a big to-do. If there's product or things going home with the child, we put it in the backpack. One of the things that we are also really passionate about is providing choice for a child, which was something that I had never thought about. You got to pick the nice looking polo shirt that you're wearing today. I knew I was doing this interview today, so I'm like, I'm going to wear Care to Learn green.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times that child has no choice or ability to fix the situation.
It gives them some sense of agency.
It does.
Autonomy. That's a good thing.
Yeah. So we have a partnership with Walmart, as well as Shoe Carnival and several other vendors locally, where we can give that child a voucher, and that child can go shop with his or her parent or guardian to get the coat that he or she wants. So a lot of times, or shoes that fit just right, we provide that to that child.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Hi, I'm Z Herzog. I'm the subscription sales manager for the Springfield Daily Citizen. My typical day is really audience development. Sometimes that looks like direct customer service, where I help customers troubleshoot issues with their tech and send out emails that help them understand what our product is and why they should subscribe. We get a lot of data coming in. We can see a lot of things related to our subscribers and audiences and what they like and how they view our product. So putting all of those numbers to actual actions to improve the user experience and what they want to see from us. I think it's really important for people to understand we are taking such good care to understand the needs of our community and provide a perspective that comes from within the community and not from more corporate perspectives. Really that grassroots understanding of what our needs are.
So how you started here in Springfield.
Mm-hmm.
In September of last year, you celebrated, I think I was at the event, in fact, 3 million needs that have been met.
Yeah.
How did that grow so fast?
Yeah. So I think, we're super blessed that, through the beginning of Care to Learn, it was this beautiful organic growth that kind of happened. And then several years ago, we started looking at, hey, what sort of systems or processes do we need to have in place?
Mm-hmm.
And I always like to say that this is none of the glamorous things that people necessarily want to talk about, but that's really what I think catapults organizations really from that good to great, or that kind of can take off from that trajectory standpoint. And so we started putting those systems in place to where we could be scalable, to where we can make it just that much more efficient. So if we can create that system or process where you don't have to hesitate. You know that you think about it. So when you see a child, you automatically think, oh, I can do something. I've got Care to Learn. And just creating that habit, as well as making it simpler for the school district as well. And so the last 3 years, we've been really intentional with that. And that's been a huge part of our growth. The second piece is, I always say in what we do, I need the chicken and the egg. So I absolutely want to help that child. But in order to do that, I need cash or resources on hand to do that. So we've been very strategic to try to establish great corporate sponsors that support our mission, that are passionate about our mission, that want to allow us to buy product from them at a reduced cost or maybe even donated.
So let me give you an example. The school superintendent or the president of the school board, I'm making this up, Clinton, Missouri, hears about Care to Learn. And they think it's a great program. They want to talk to you folks about how to start it there in Clinton. So you've got a template for that.
Absolutely.
And one of the things, of course, is, nothing happens without resources. You got to raise money. Who do you go talk to be the corporate sponsor in Clinton?
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that?
Well, I hope Clinton's listening, because they're not a chapter of mine. So if you have a connection, Tom, in Clinton, if that's like a little plug, hey, I would love to be in Clinton, Missouri. So I'll put that in the universe.
I'm sure they have people that could take advantage of you there. But I just pulled that out.
No, I love it. So yes, absolutely. So what I say all the time, because that was kind of, not I want to say shocking, but surprising to me. So when I started at Care to Learn, when you think of rural Missouri, I think we all kind of have an image in our head, and you kind of might think the same thing in each community. And that is not the case. Even though we're in 46 communities, they all have their own identity, their own feel about them, how they view helping students, how they view poverty, how they work together as a community from a resource standpoint. All of that is very much in what I would consider the DNA of that community. The last thing I want to do is to tell their community they should do it. So a lot of times it's us coming in and just listening. So the superintendent in Clinton, what's been successful? Do you guys fundraise? What types of things have gone well? What do you think that your community would respond to? But before we even do that, though, Tom, it's really important, as much as I really genuinely love to fundraise, which most people don't, I genuinely love to do it. We want to be good stewards of those Clinton dollars. So before we even start talking about fundraising, I want to know how I'm going to help your kids and what it's going to cost to help your children. And then what we're going to do is I can calculate based off of 16 years of awesome data of what it's going to cost to do whatever programs we're going to implement within your school district. And that's going to be the number that we're going to go after.
So you can give them a concrete target.
100%. And then what I try to do is I try to fundraise. If it's a new community, I try to fundraise half of it to get them going because I want them to start seeing the success of Care to Learn. So there are a handful of donors that I will call that I know that like certain...
You mean maybe here in Springfield
Yep.
or larger?
Yep.
That will basically give them seed money.
100%. And we'll do a match. We won't just, so it's $1 for $1. Sometimes it might be even a 2-to-1 in a really high poverty, high need community. But I'll say, on paper, we have communities that are very small, very rural, very high free and reduced lunch, no economic really engine in that community. Everything, all the industries have left that do remarkably well with Care to Learn. Like on paper, 1 + 1 does not equal 2.
So how many people are on your staff?
So we are a small but mighty team. So we've actually grown significantly. So when I started at Care to Learn, I think there was like 2.2 staff, and I was one of the 2.2. Now I'm like having to think in my head, let's see, I think that we're up to 7 full-time staff is what we're up to. And we'll have a budget this year of almost $6 million.
$6 million, my
Yeah.
gosh.
When I started-
That's grown immensely.
Yeah, when I started, it was 1.1 million.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
Can we get you to work on the federal deficit?
Oh, I wish I was passionate about that. I probably should, Tom, because that would be a big, right? That would impact millions of people.
Where I was going with some of that, though, so in our hypothetical Collins, Missouri, there is not a paid Care to Learn staff person working there.
For the most part. So that's where every community is different. Some communities, they provide a stipend, and they get to pick who our point of contact is. So a lot of times it is going to be that social worker, counselor, school nurse. And some of my small, really rural communities, it might be a principal. I have 3 communities, I should say, that have a paid staff person that part of their position is primarily Care to Learn duties because of the volume and the need. But of the 46, it's only 3.
So it basically it's just a well-meaning person that's willing to take on some extra duties to help these kids.
Yeah, and I always say, when we start a chapter, it is work because anytime you're doing something different or you're implementing a system, it's going to take some time in that beginning. But the hope is that when you have the team behind you that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting alongside you, meaning that Care to Learn team, we try to make the load of that liaison as light as possible. So really it's just getting that individual to engage not only the community within her building, but the community outside of that. So whether that, depending upon the size and scope of the community, it could be a Rotary Club or a chamber there locally, or bringing myself or someone in to speak on behalf of what Care to Learn does, or why they wanted to start a Care to Learn chapter in the first place.
Cities, school districts, county governments are all a creation of the law. The law sets them up and says you can operate in this way, but not in that way. And particularly with schools and all the regulations, it's easy to stub your toe. How does a highly regulated organization interface with Care to Learn, and are there points of friction? How do you get through the red tape?
Yeah, that's an interesting, because I had never worked in like a public school environment. And so that was something interesting, is the politics that come with partnering with public school districts. And so that's been a fascinating learning curve. I will say once we get to the superintendent, there really is no red tape. But I don't deny if a superintendent does not endorse Care to Learn or does not want Care to Learn in their district, we will not be successful. Everything kind of starts at that top position. And so, between you and me, I'm sure that there are a handful of districts and communities that I would absolutely love to be in. However, for a variety of reasons, that is just not something that they're interested in. And I say all the time, like, we play well in the sandbox. And I think that that's probably maybe my frustration is anytime that there's other community partners or nonprofits, I say all the time, Care to Learn does not need to get all the credit, nor do we need to do everything. We can fill gaps. And so we have one community, post-COVID, where they had an older group of women that were doing their feeding program. Well, post-COVID, they didn't feel comfortable shopping at a grocery store, nor did they want to. And so we were already partnering with that community, and they asked if we would take over their feeding backpack program. Well, we do that in multiple of our school districts. And so that was an easy way for us to step in and fill that immediate gap. But
So in terms of your overall business plan, is it conceived that you will have, on the one hand, a permanent relationship with a particular community, as opposed to we're raised in this community, it's like kids were raised teaching you how to do things, and at some point you should be able to handle it on your own?
That's a great question. And like I've not had that question before. That's an awesome question. We've never had a community.
Are you ever going to kick them out of the nest?
So I would kick them out. No. Well, there might be a few that I'd like to. No, that is another podcast. Or maybe that's drinks after this podcast, Tom. But in all honesty, it's one of those situations where, as much as I would love to think, someone asked me, is your goal to eliminate poverty and, kids not to have to deal with what we know that they're dealing with? I'm not naive to think that that is a realistic goal, but that doesn't mean that we don't aspire to do something great.
The Bible says the poor will always be with you.
Mm-hmm. So in my
mind,
mean
we're not supposed to try to do something about it.
Yeah. So if from a philosophical or Krystal Simon view, I want to be where communities want Care to Learn and need help. And if that means that there is one student that does not have their basic needs met and we can help that one child, I would go to that community for that one child, period.
So what's the future hold for Care to Learn? Are you just going to keep doing what you do better, or are you thinking of undertaking any kind of new initiatives?
That's exciting. It's really cool to see where you haven't been to our new office yet, Tom. So we just moved to a new office.
Oh.
So I need to have you over.
I'd love to be there.
Yeah, I'd love to have
Thank
you guys and your team. We can have you guys see kind of Care to Learn in action. But, I think that, if someone would have told me that in the last 3 years we would be where we are today, I don't think I would have believed it. So we have undertaken kind of a 3-year and a 10-year strategic plan, with the goal being that we will meet 10 million health, hunger, hygiene needs of students. Right now, that student is loose. Right now, we are currently, those 46 communities are in Missouri, and they're throughout. So we have them in St. Louis, Kansas City, Cape Girardeau, Jeff City, and then, of course, a significant amount in what I would consider Southwest Missouri. There's always been talk about going to Arkansas or other markets, and I would say that is not off the table yet. I think where we're at is we're really wanting to make sure that we're servicing the school districts that we partner with currently well. We're wanting to make sure that we understand public education and where that industry or sector is headed, and see if there's any gaps that are tied to what our core mission is. We will not change that, I will tell you that. We have kind of stayed in our lanes of health, hunger, hygiene, and that will not change in the future. But I do think that you're going to probably see some pretty significant growth to come. But I don't know what that looks like just yet, because who would have thought that we would be where we are today?
I don't know if you come up with this issue, but I have seen it come up from time to time when you have an organization that's dealing with issues that are confronting a family. Some communities, some organizations will push back. They'll say, that's none of your business and you should stay out of what's going on in our own family. We resent the intrusion. Have you encountered that?
I personally have not, but I'm really removed from that child-family interaction, which when I started at Care to Learn was really difficult for me, because I was used to seeing it kind of up close and personal. I will say that in most of our communities, there isn't been a barrier to receive, but I'm not naive to think that it doesn't happen. We just don't hear about it at my level.
I see. So have you made any mistakes in the last few years taking this job on?
I don't think mistakes is kind of get like it's like a bad definition. Like, because I think the worst thing you can do is...
What learning opportunities have you encountered?
No, it's more like the fact that, like, I would say it was a mistake if I didn't learn from it. You know what I mean? Like, I hope that I'm better as a result of it. When I came...
So whatever mistakes you've made, you haven't repeated them.
Yeah, that is the goal.
Right.
And this is kind of funny. I think looking back, I think it was a mistake. So, and it's not even anything big to you, but like, I still love the marketing communications aspect. Like, our team has been very instrumental in the brand of Care to Learn and what you see in the community and what that image is. That very much that hopeful view of, I can't change what happens in a child's home, but that moment that interaction happens with that child and that educator, and they're given something that was totally unexpected, or somebody helped them in such a way that they weren't expecting, that moment is, I consider it magical.
Sure.
And so we've kind of leaned into that. But my first Christmas with Care to Learn, we always do a really big Christmas campaign. And, Care to Learn is very much green. We're known for our green, Kelly green. But I did turn the Care to Learn logo red for Christmas. I know, right? I know. And I'm still here sitting. I made it through at that. So that was something, looking back, I probably would not have done, but I was wanting kind of something different. And that's something silly, but I mean, I'm so fortunate, I guess. And maybe this is kind of the silver lining for maybe those that are listening, is surround yourself with really talented, crazy, smart people. That if you don't have the conviction, or you're like, hey, I'm kind of torn on, should we do this or that?
Mm-hmm.
I've been very fortunate to be surrounded by really smart, awesome, kind, lovely people that will give me honest feedback. And I probably saved myself some of those mistakes because I was maybe vulnerable enough to go to them and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking, or what do you think about this? And I've got some really awesome advice. And so that's probably saved me from, my worst mistake is turning the logo red.
Kind of reminds me of a saying attributed to Margaret Mead. It went something like this: never doubt that a small group of dedicated people can change the world, because that's the only thing that ever has.
So do you know that is hanging on our refrigerator at Care to Learn?
No, I didn't.
Yes.
Well, I hope I got it mostly
right. No, you did.
Right.
No, you got it exactly right. I was like, I wanted to repeat it, but yes, you're exactly right.
So we've got a few minutes left. What have I not asked you about you want to tell our listeners about?
Can I share a story?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Please do.
So for me, as much as I can share great numbers and facts and 3 million needs and this and that, I say all the time it's about that one child. And so this actually happened probably a year and a half ago. And I think this is the perfect example of what Care to Learn is all about. So, in the fall, our weather will turn when you're not expecting it, right? We know in October or November, it's going to get really cold, and it's going to be like 80 degrees one day and then like 20s the next.
Right.
And so we were preparing for that, and we had a local organization that sells a whole lot of coats and came to us and said, hey, we'd love to partner with you guys. And so we worked out a partnership where we got a ton of brand new winter coats for kids. And a couple days, thanks to the meteorologist team, they gave us a little bit of heads up saying, hey, the weather's going to turn. And so we went to our board and said, hey, we've got these coats. They just came in. Would you guys be able to distribute them? And so fun fact, SPS has 52 school sites within Springfield. So that's a lot of deliveries to make in a very quick time. And so we called upon our board, and they're like, yes, absolutely. So we divvied up the coats. They got them to those schools. And then the weather hit. And so we had a school bus driver who was on his route. And I always get so emotional saying this because it's the visual of what was shared with me. So he stops at the bus stop, and there's this little girl next to her dad at the stop. And the dad puts her on the bus, and this sweet little girl's wrapped in a bath towel. And you see the father, kind of takes the bath towel, and she walks up onto the bus. And so we have been really intentional that school year about making sure that every single new employee, whether you've been with SPS for 20 years or 20 seconds, that you knew what Care to Learn could do for you and how you could utilize it. So that bus driver drove to school, went into the building and said, hey, I've got this sweet girl that, she was waiting at the stop with her dad. It's obvious that she didn't have a coat. Do we have a coat that we could provide her? Well, the day prior, our board had delivered those coats, and that little girl went home that day with a brand new coat that she got to pick out that was in the nurse's office.
Well, that's great. It doesn't sound like there was a lot of red tape involved.
No. And to me, that is the magic of Care to Learn. It's the community coming alongside. It's a bus driver that was doing what he is supposed to do. He's not expected to get that little girl a coat, nor, that he was driving her to school and she got there safely. He could have gone about his day, but instead he felt called to do something and got her a coat. What's super cool is that story was a couple years ago in the fall, and fast forward to last year when SPS started the school year, he was their MVP and their Employee of the Year. That is a true story from Springfield. I think his name is Ron. He's still a bus driver today, and he's doing great things.
There was a guy named, I think he's passed now, kind of reminds me of him. His name was Leonard Spellman. And, I've been an observer of the local Chamber of Commerce for many, many years, decades, you could even say. One year, Leonard, who was a postman, got Springfielding of the Year because he had fitted over 3,000 kids for shoes in his spare time.
Incredible.
A wonderful, wonderful guy. So in the last minute or so, if somebody wants to get involved with Care to Learn, want to help, what should they do?
Yeah, absolutely. We would encourage them to check out our website, caretolearn.org. There's many ways that you can get involved, whether you live in Springfield or really across Southwest Missouri. You can volunteer your time. You can always do a collection drive for us. All the time we need various items, whether that's snack items, whether it's hygiene items. It'll be turning that cold weather again, so we'll be asking for donations. So you can do a collection drive with your church or your school or your workplace. And then, of course, you can also volunteer if you're like, hey, I don't have time for that. So, Tom, if you're like, hey, Krystal, I'm too busy, you can always write a check. I take checks too.
Checks, money orders.
Yeah,
I bet you do Venmo as well, right?
Yes, we do. But really, at the end of the day, or even just if it's advocacy, I say all the time, part of one of the things that we're super passionate about is we want to make sure that we're also teaching kids that are in the school district that they can be kind and compassionate to their peers as well. So we actually have kind of a volunteer program for a younger demographic to be mindful of, hey, my friend is coming to school and he or she might have body odor. Well, rather than making fun of them or isolating them, why might that be the case? And so that's another way. So if you have kids or grandkids and you're like, hey, I'd love to get them involved in the mission of Care to Learn, we'd love to tackle those issues with the next generation.
Krystal, thank you for being my guest today on In Our Town.
Thank you so much.
That's it for this week, and many thanks for listening. If you'd like to listen to other episodes, you can visit the Springfield Daily Citizen website at sgfcitizen.org/In Our Town, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.